Unlocked is brought to you by Invincible, a program designed to unlock the potential of people and teams inside your organization. Join companies like Pfizer, Delta, the CDC, Google, and Chick-fil-A, and others in over 116 countries that are currently using this program to increase productivity and develop healthy cultures. Access hundreds of hours of content that is accessible anytime, anywhere. And finally, use real-time data to understand the health of every team inside your organization, which teams are performing and which ones aren't. Then understand the why behind that performance. Get free access to Invincible for 30 days by visiting www.giant.tv/30days. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of people. And today we're going to talk about unlocking the potential of people's creativity and ideas, because we all have them and we need to know how to unlock them. Well, I'm going to talk today to Bryan Mattimore, who is the chief idea guy. So this is the guy that helps you unlock those ideas and that creativity and bringing that all out. Bryan, I love this guy, right? This guy is super, super smart, super fun, ideas all over the place, and he's super willing to give you all these ideas. So he's led over $3 billion in new sales for Fortune 100, for the top third Fortune 100 companies. He's worked with a ton of different organizations. He sat next to David Ogilvy and drilled him on ideas. So you'll hear about that in the interview. He's helped name Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Huh? What? So he's got a lot of weird projects he's worked on, as well as really fascinating things. He's a graduate at Dartmouth. He is the innovation and marketing instructor at Caltech. So this guy kind of knows what he's talking about, and I think he should pay attention. I'm just saying. So let's get on with the interview. Here we come, Bryan. Thanks. Bryan, welcome to the show. It's good to have you. We're excited to, I say we, like there's multiple me's here. I'm excited to have you. This is fun times, man.
Well, thanks, Scott. And it looks like a we behind you. You got two other heads there. So
that's true. I do have
a cool we.
These are my friends. So we just kind of hang out. We hang out together. We talk a lot. So I want to know what this chief idea guy title is all about.
Well, we're an innovation agency, Growth Engine, that I co-founded 20 years ago with Gary Fraser. He was named Market of the Year by Brand Week. He was my lead client at Unilever. We formed Growth Engine 20 years ago. And so he's chief strategy guy. But I said, we're an innovation agency. I got to come up with some weird creative title. And I said, yeah, well, I'm in charge of ideas. I'm the chief idea guy. So, and it's been interesting. People generally kind of laugh at that. The head of the Forbes division, said, "Oh yeah, I know you. I love your title." So it's served its purpose, and it's both interesting and accurate. So isn't that nice?
It works, man. It's like you created this little differentiator, right? Which is what you're all about. And as coming from the brand strategy world, I have done that a long time. So it stands out and well played. So it's memorable and that's a good thing. So good job on that. Tell me about this total innovation enterprise. Tell me about what that is. Tell me about what you do and how that all works.
Yeah, so as an innovation agency, and we were actually the first, even though nobody cares. We had the notion that, not unlike an ad agency or a promotion agency or a digital agency, to really do innovation well, you need to have an ongoing relationship with the client, because you have to understand the brands and the brand equities and leverage those in terms of new products. So when we formed the agency, it was really to help people or CMOs and their teams come up with new products and services, right? But we also discovered that because of our methodologies, and they're not specific, they work against all kinds of business challenges. So we've now, since our 20 years in business, we've done, work with HR teams, with, manufacturing guys, of course, but the logistics people, because if you think about it, I mean, they all have challenges, right? And so the methodologies that we know, these ideation techniques, as we call them, can be used to solve all kinds of challenges, not just the traditional marketing and promotion challenges. And so that's the notion of a total innovation enterprise. And I would just say one other thing about that. What we've discovered is that it's so extraordinary when you're asking people in all departments and at all levels to be creative and to help grow the organization. Not only do you get some great ideas that do exactly that, but it builds a company culture that can be really powerful. And we can talk more about that if you want. But I feel that a company, to reach its full potential, has to help its people unlock, let's call it, unlock their full potential. And my bias is the only way you can do that is having them be creative.
So true. And I've seen that a lot too, coming from the creative world, is that when we get in a room and we start brainstorming and there are what we'll say non-creatives in the room, right? You got your HR, you've got your accounting, you got customer service, you've got even some of your executives in the room. Then we start talking. They're like, "Oh, no, we're not the creative ones. We're not the creative ones. We don't do that. We leave that to the marketing and designers, the ones in flip-flops and t-shirts, right? And we don't do that stuff." And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. Everybody has an idea, and you will definitely bring something to the table, person in HR, that creative over there will not think about. And that's what's so interesting about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of research done, as you know, on the power of sort of cross-functionality, right? The importance of getting people from all different disciplines and backgrounds and experiences. And they may not, frankly, be as creative as some of the other people in the room, but A, they often get ideas that you hadn't thought of, and B, even more important, sometimes they will trigger other people to make connections. So, I remember I did a talk to 150 clinical trial people at a large pharmaceutical company, right? And HR and the talent people kept saying to me, these people aren't that creative. I'm like, stop. I didn't say it that way because it was a client, but that's what I was thinking. And we did this wonderful thing. We did a bunch of techniques, triggered brainwalk and customer wishing and all these different approaches. And these people were unbelievable. It's like they would been, waiting in the stables or at the starting gate, for the last 20 years to be creative. And they were fantastic. And to me, one of the greatest contributions, besides the ideas that came out of it, was it helped the company, especially the HR and talent people, sort of redefine how they thought about their coworkers. And so that was tremendously rewarding.
That is so cool to hear. I'm interested to hear about these creative training sessions that you do, or workshops or whatever. And what is, so when companies are having an issue, right? And they're like, "Hey, we need to bring in Bryan." Like, what's that breaking point for them? When do they feel like they need you? When does somebody bring in the chief idea guy to shake things up?
Yeah, well, so let me talk about the creativity training thing, and then I'll talk about when they call. Well, actually, I'll talk about when they call first. They call when they have something weird and hard. We tend to get terribly performing divisions sometimes to help. And ironically, we also get some of the best performing divisions because they understand the value and power of ideas. And they're always pushing for new ideas. In some ways, the companies that need us the most can often call us the least. But they call us, often it's marketing challenges. But as I said, we have, and by the way, we could call it eating our own dog food, right? We've invented all kinds of different approaches to this, new ways of thinking about how to use innovation and ideation processes. So, one of our services is called TradeLink, which is joint ideation with the trade, which is unbelievably powerful. right? Another thing we've invented is disruptive wargaming strategy processes, right? You know, on and on and on. And so we tend to get weird calls, and it's really, really fun. You know, we got a call one time from an insurance company, and they said, how do we sell more life insurance to Catholics? And I'm like, who is this? You know, so that makes it incredibly fun, incredibly interesting, you know, disconcerting, because you say, I have no idea how we're going to approach this, but then you get into it, you do it. And you know, from your design work, you know, it starts and you're nervous and you're scared, and then by the time you're done, you get, you know, 200 ideas, and it's very exciting. So that's the answer to the first question, which is who calls us, and it's sort of everybody who has an issue or a challenge, right? That they have trouble solving. So that's one thing. In terms of our creativity training, we practice what's called action learning. I don't know if you have heard that term, or your listeners have heard it. It came out of GE, but it's essentially learning by doing. And so in our workshops, I can mention LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. They've been a client of ours for 20 years. We get people, they have 50 luxury divisions, you know, Christian Dior and Givenchy, and, you know, obviously Louis Vuitton, et cetera. In our workshops with them, we get, you know, typically 20 people or so from all their different divisions to come in, but to be allowed to attend our 2-day workshop with them, they have to send us a real world challenge. So the Marc Jacobs guy says, well, and he's in logistics. He said, my challenge is getting these Marc Jacobs bags to the US quick enough. Or the Sephora person said, you know, we're opening up a store in Dallas. How do we do that in an innovative way? Or, you know, Christian Dior, we're launching a new perfume, and there are a million of these. How do we get noticed, et cetera? So the point of the training is there's a BOGO, right? You know, they learn these techniques, and typically it's 12 to 14 techniques, triggered brain walking, picture prompts, patent prompts, et cetera. All these techniques we use, which we can talk more about if you want. But we teach them these techniques by them learning how to apply to their real jobs and real challenges. And in the process, the coolest thing is they get ideas they never thought of. So there's an ROI to our training that's almost never the case in other trainings, immediate ROI, where people get ideas that they can go use. And part of the reason we do that is so they see that this is not purely theoretical. It's based on theory, but it's about pragmatic uses of these things, right? That you can use them in the real world. So my recommendation to your listeners, if anybody's thinking of hiring a creativity training firm, if they say, yeah, we're going to work on 1,000 uses for a brick, unless you're in the construction industry, you know, run away, because that to me says they're just being, you know, totally theoretical and not how to apply this stuff to real world challenges.
Okay, good to know. So next time somebody tries to sell me training on bricks, noted. Like, do not do that. Okay, cool.
Unless you're in the construction business, then that's okay.
Correct. Unless I'm in the construction business. Right. I just got that email this morning. I'll get rid of that guy. So good. Okay, now that you've piqued my interest about these exercises that you run people through,
yep.
I gotta ask, is there one that you can share with us? Like, is there one that we can walk through? Can we use these in a daily basis or a weekly basis as, you know, business owners or employees or whatever to unlock our processes that we go through every day? Is there something, like, without giving away your secrets, right? Something we can do?
Well, first of all, we do give away all our secrets. I mean, my book, Ideastormers, there are probably 20 or 25 different ideation techniques in that book. And I'm very explicit about how you use them. I wrote that book so smaller and medium-sized companies could have the advantage of the large guys who are paying us bigger fees, and maybe these guys can't afford us. So that was part of the motivation for writing that book. And also the book 21 Days to a Big Idea. That book was for, you know, aspiring entrepreneurs. So the net of it is we give this stuff away all the time. And we do that because, you know, it's kind of fun, and it forces us to create new stuff, right? So that's one thing. We give it away all the time. The contribution of Ideastormers, that book, is that because I've personally facilitated over 1,000 ideation sessions, and my firm has done 1,500, and we've done 200 successful innovation projects, and on and on and on. We've learned which techniques work against different kinds of challenges. And so that's a unique contribution to the field we've made, besides inventing new ones, like patent prompts is a technique we invented, et cetera, triggered brainwalking, et cetera. So we're constantly inventing new techniques against specific challenges, right? But it's really our expertise in knowing which techniques can solve different kinds of challenges, have a greater likelihood, right? So if it's a strategy challenge, we would use questioning assumptions, problem redefinition, right, and 20 questions. If it's a new product assignment, we would use semantic intuition and probably a triggered brainwalk and customer wishing, and probably trend triggers too, right? So the point is now, beyond brainstorming, right, there are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of different techniques that can help people break through to new ideas, right? If your listeners have a particularly, if there's an HR challenge, for instance, or they're trying to staff a project, but they feel like they're in an impossible situation, right? Which we've worked with, the city of New York for 20 years and the state of New York, teaching auditors how to be more creative, which is really fun.
Wow, I didn't know that was possible. Is that possible?
Yeah, this is the controller's office. It's fantastic. And by the way,
auditor friends out there,
they're great. But and we had them actually, in those cases, we had them role play famous people, and if those famous people were going to invent new audits, who would they and what would they be auditing, right? So it's really cool. But I think maybe two all-purpose techniques. One, if you're really stuck, if you're in an impossible situation, the most powerful one is probably questioning assumptions, right? So you list 20 assumptions about the thing that you're stuck with, and when you begin to question those, like in government, it's, I don't have the budget, I don't have the people, and I've got to get it done by next Thursday. You get in these impossible boxes, right? Where you question those assumptions. You assuming you had to do it, right? You assuming you can't have the money be donated by, a corporation in New York City, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be one, questioning assumptions. And a second one, which is a lot of fun, because these techniques, by the way, work on different parts of the brain. So we have 4 categories of techniques I've identified. One is, if you will, questioning techniques, which is questioning assumptions, et cetera. Another is metaphorical techniques, which is how great inventors throughout history, who've been studied in great depth, literally hundreds of inventors, their preferred modality when making new inventions is metaphors, principle transfer. The third class of techniques we've identified is visual techniques. So for picture prompts, et cetera, collaging, those are great for insight work. And the last is sort of a catch-all, but those are kind of fantasy ones, and those are really far out ones, right? When you want to involve sort of the imaginative part of your brain. So a fantastic, if you will, fantasy technique. I like that, a fantastic fantasy technique.
Yeah. Well played. Good job.
Thank you. Is a worst idea. And that's really fun. And so you just or when we did work for the ASPCA on how we could get New Yorkers to invent ex-drug dealer pit bulls. I'm not kidding, that was a real assignment. We used, in that case, a silly technique, but the silly technique, which I created just for them. But the worst idea is you come up with not good ideas, but bad ideas. And, I was given a talk to 150 bankers, it was the Bank Marketing Association. And, so we did worst idea technique, and they loved it. Oh, we could close the banks at 1 o'clock, not 2 o'clock. We could, double the fees. We could take all the change, all this kind of, and it was great. And the point, I guess the bigger point here is that with these different techniques, people who have defined themselves as not creative discover, oh my gosh, I am unbelievably creative. And by the way, I'll just say, don't tell anyone, but these techniques are not rocket science. They're easy, they're simple. And so my mission in this lifetime has been to get people to use some of these things, because they're not hard to learn and they're unbelievably effective at the end of the day.
Okay, I got to know, I got to know the end of like, what is this? So the banking technique, like the bad idea, what is that supposed to do for them? What happens as a result of
Well,
that?
in this case, it was inventing new products, right? I mean, I'm giving a speech of their dying to 150 bankers, and so I pull up an exercise with them of this worst idea. And so one of the worst ideas was, let's just take their, we'll take the change. If they have a deposit, if their account is $2,945.23, let's take the 23 cents because they'll never notice it, right? I mean, that's a bad idea, right? We're going to steal from our customers, right? By the way, if you want, I can tell you a story about a multi-million-dollar service that came out of this technique for Dun & Bradstreet. But anyway, so what's the idea there for the bankers? The idea is maybe we create a savings account where people put their change in that savings account. So it's always rounded down, right? We take the money that's 0.45 cents and just put that in a savings account, right? And so, and as you probably know, Bank of America at one point actually did this, right? So I mean, in that case, we were focused. I mean, my purpose was just to get out of there alive, to have them like this technique.
Right.
But that's a viable idea.
That is. So you're saying that, because I've been there, right? Sitting around brainstorming about how we're going to market this product or build a brand strategy for this company. Everybody's throwing ideas out there, right? And that phrase, if there are no bad ideas, like everybody, let's build confidence in people sharing, right? But sometimes people say things and everybody will laugh. Yeah, I'm sure you've been here. Everybody will laugh and, oh, that's ridiculous. And then somebody goes, wait a second.
Yes.
Wait, that might be, what if we twisted that and did this, right? So that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
It is. I mean, there's a famous example from the history of advertising where they're sitting around and they're going, yeah, we got these grapes. Yeah, let's have them dance to Heard It Through a Grapevine, right? And of course, the California raisin thing, grapes, raisins, whatever. And there are dozens of these examples, right? Even if you look at the Aaron Sorkin masterclass, he says, okay, guys, writing screenplays, I forget it. It's hard. Come up with some bad ideas as a way to break people through their thought patterns. And it's incredibly effective because it takes all the pressure off, right? I can't come up with good ideas, but I can come up with bad ideas. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, and by the way, you do it, you list 20 bad ideas and then you either look for the opposite, right? Or you say, as bad as this idea is, can I turn it into a good idea? So that's a very simple technique. In the case of the ASPCA, we did silly idea because I didn't want them to say, yeah, we'll kill the dogs, and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So, a silly idea was a virtual adoption, and then they fall in love with them, or you dress them up for the Halloween Day parade, or the Halloween parade, and then that led to actually the national campaign, which is about making these animals personal, championing their personalities as a way to get people to adopt them.
That's really smart. I like that idea. It's reverse psychology a little bit, right? Just flips it on its head.
But by the way, if anybody wants the full stories, because I'm jumping around here, naming a new ice cream for Ben and Jerry's, or selling more life insurance to Catholics, or we did a project for one of the large automakers on how to invent a new sales forecasting system. Oh my gosh, this is not easy. All of these are on my TEDx talk, that 17-minute talk. It's solving impossible challenges.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, we're gonna put a link here in the show notes to get people to that, as well as some of your other resources. That fantastic. Yeah, people go watch that stuff. So good, because I mean, we're always fascinated, like when we look at logos and like the hidden gems inside of logos, go, oh, I never saw that before, or oh, like the little hidden behind the scenes. We're all fascinated by the behind the scenes stuff. And so if I can sit there and look at, especially something as unique as Ben and Jerry's ice cream names, and sit there and think, how did they come up with that? Why would they be calling that one, right? And so I think that's really, really fascinating, really smart.
Yep. Well, I remember early on in my career, and I've been able to interview and meet some great people in history, David Ogilvy, et cetera, et cetera. But Paul Rand, who did the IBM logo, as you know, I asked him, well, what's with that? And he said, well, I had the letters and I did that cross hatching so it would begin to integrate it. So you move beyond the letters to an identity, which is, something about a lot more than I do. But, I've been fascinating with, we'll call them origin stories of great ideas through history. When I had dinner one time through a friend with David Ogilvy, I was sitting next to him. So I'm like grilling him for like an hour, right? And I was asking him all these really weird questions. And I said, well, have you ever gotten an idea for an ad campaign from a dream? Because I'm just asking all these absurd questions, right? And he said, yeah, it happened one time in the Pepperidge Farm Remembers campaign. I don't know if you remember that old bread truck. Anyway, it was a great campaign. It ran for a long time, but he got that one in a dream, for instance, which does happen. My father, who was in advertising, came up with the line, "Say Pepsi, please." He got that in a dream, and that was to combat, give me a Coke, right? And it was actually a radio contest is how they launched that. But
that's funny.
Story. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, I don't know if David Ogilvy has been asked that question too often, right? About you ever go in the idea in a dream? It's like, who is this guy?
Exactly. So. Yeah, he was stuck. He couldn't get away. He was sitting next to me.
Oh, there you go. That's the best way, right? Make sure you're stuck next to David Ogilvy at a dinner. That's awesome. So these are some. I don't know how many of us have interacted with these ideation sessions or somebody to come in and facilitate these sessions for us in the past. But let's talk about what's a service, that people would be surprised to even know that you even provide.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I just need to say one thing, that expression, there are no bad ideas, just so people, and that's about withholding judgment. That's what that means. But if you take that literally, people need to know that most of the ideas are bad, right? About only 10% or maybe 15% when we do a session are any good. So people have to understand this is about a third what you would get with an all-star baseball hitter, right? So it's a numbers game. So people just have to understand that, because they say, God, we got 50 ideas. There are only 2 good ones in here. Well, oh my gosh, that's fantastic, right?
It's brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of a service that people might be surprised that we offer, one of them is we've actually done a fair amount of vision, mission, and values work. And it turns out that is that lends itself to a creative process. And of course, vision and mission are the purview and important for senior management to do. We did this for a famous talent placement company before they were sold. And so we were working with their CEO and all the senior leaders to redefine their vision and mission, because they were about to be sold. But the critical thing is the value side of this. And so what we do then is we will do creative values work. So there are 2 components that. Number one, you want all employees to contribute to the values, right? Because they're the ones that have to embody this, right? And Zappos, for instance, you probably know, they spent a year working on getting the values right. And there are 10 of them, which I think is too many, but it's brilliant. And that was the key that Tony Hsieh said was the key to their success, and ultimately being sold to Amazon for $1 billion too. So values is something where the people, every employee should participate. And once they're established, then we will do sessions with employees where they figure out how to translate those values into behaviors in their daily lives. And that is a really wonderful thing. If one of our values is be a pioneer, and you're in the you're the elevator operator, or you're helping bring boxes into the warehouse, well, how does that translate? And so you need to be creative about how you translate those values to your everyday job. And I think that probably surprises the audience. And this has, by the way, just been tremendously rewarding work for us, psychically rewarding, because people then really feel a part of the culture, and they are contributing in unique and wonderful ways. And my experience is that people love to contribute in those kind of ways, and it's a sense of purpose and mission, and it makes it easier to go to work every day, frankly.
That is interesting. I did not expect you to say that vision, mission,
Good,
values work.
good. That's what you asked.
It
Okay,
worked.
good.
It worked. I was not expecting that. Because I'll do a lot of that. I did a lot of that in the brand strategy work that I did. But now for external communication, now for internal communication, where I work mostly with teams and organizations and leaders on effectively communicating inside their organization, having a strong core vision, mission, values that's not just a poster on the wall of an eagle flying into the sunset in your break room, but like that it's legit, like it feels real and authentic, is core to having a strong company culture and being able to have buy-in and loyalty, building loyalty inside that organization. Worked for years on building external loyalty with customers and clients. And now I do that internally with organizations, and that's so key. So I'm glad that you said that.
Well, it's important work, and of course, I think the talent wars, when COVID subsides a bit, will come back, and it's that war for talent. And I do think that this is absolutely critical work to attract, and even sometimes more importantly, to retain talent when they have that sense of mission and purpose and contribution. One trick, we worked with a medium-sized real estate firm on the mission, vision, values thing. And one of the things they did is they take a different value each month and champion that value throughout the organization. So they'll provide articles and books, and maybe they'll have lunch, book meetings, or also another technique is called the whiteboard technique, where people put ideas down on a whiteboard, and everybody, when people get back together physically, can build on those ideas, et cetera. So there are all these creative ways to activate the change in behaviors you're looking for.
Very cool. Yeah. So I'm curious, what's your recommended number of values that a company should have? I have mine as well, but I'm curious about yours.
Yeah, I think 5 or 6 is probably good. I think 10, Zappos, I understand why they did the 10, and 3 of them are sort of around creativity, but, God bless them. And, one of them is be a little weird or something. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, Tony Hsieh, before he passed away tragically in a fire in Connecticut, I think he had, as I remember, he had a tattoo, I think, on his head or something. It's like, oh my gosh. And I actually did quite a bit of customer experience research, and one of those was best practices with Zappos, and I got these unbelievable stories when I called them, even with a woman who said, yeah, other people have better stories than I did. And then she proceeded to tell me this story that I was literally crying after she told me. So, I mean, the values, man, are so important. And this is the softer side of things, but boy, at the end of the day, it leads to hard numbers and hard results.
I love it. Zappos has always been a good example of the company values. And I always say it too. I'm always like, there's too many, I feel, but it worked for them. It was, they're awesome. They do a great job of thinking about values differently. It's different than, let's be innovative or customer service or right. Like, you get to that point where you're like, okay, now we're not going to rubber stamp our values that everybody else is using. Like, let's try something. Zappos did it. I mean, they really did it well. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And just one last thing on the values and mission. And so, I mean, if you could take that, if you're a leader and you could take that and you showed it to somebody and said, what company is this? And they say, well, this could be 100 different companies. You've got more work to do. Maybe not necessarily on the content or substance, but certainly on the language you use to frame that value.
Yeah, I say the same thing. So well played. Yeah, I think that's super important. Is there, what can people do to get in touch with you? I mean, I've got some links in here and stuff, but if people are just listening, what's the main point of contact for you, and what I can get from you? Yeah,
so our website is growth-engine.com. My email is bmattimore, B as in Brian, bmattimore, Mattimore, at growth-engine.com. Just send me an email. And I'll actually get back to you, assuming it doesn't get lost in the spam folder. No, I'm happy to, frankly, with your listeners, if somebody is thinking of trying this, some of these ideation techniques, and just want a few minutes of counsel on that, and maybe even support, and to tell them what might or might not work, give me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to get on the phone with you. And then the quid pro quo here is, though, you have to tell me how the session went, and quote how successful it was. So I'm happy to do that. And this is not just ideation. I mean, obviously, if there's strategic challenges, how do you approach them? Creativity training, what do we do, et cetera, et cetera. Any of these areas we've talked about, I'm happy to provide some input on.
Very cool. Thanks, Bryan. I think I've been intrigued this whole time. This is super interesting to me.
Cool.
I don't know if I'm by myself, because I think I come from the same pot of awesome brew as you do, but I think this has been super fascinating.
Well, thank you. I think the two people behind you got something out of it, because their businesses are really funky. So I think they're with us. So we got a team of 3 here. That's great.
We're gonna have a party. All right, Bryan.
All right,
Thanks for having it.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
This interview had some practicalities in it, right? Some of the other interviews that we've done here have really helped stir up ideas and what we've been talking about with unlocking people and society and all these different things. Well, this one had some utility in it, that some actual practical ideas of what we can do to implement things in ourselves, right? I love this 20 bad ideas process, I guess you could call it, right? Process or exercise. I think I'm going to try to start using that with myself, with maybe some of my clients. It just sounds super interesting, and a way to think about things a little bit differently. So Ideastormers sounds like a book that I would super be interested in, as far as these exercises and putting them into practical use. So Bryan has a lot of experience with generating ideas and creativity. We all have the ability to be creative in the way we think, okay? And the way we operate and bring out those ideas. Don't limit yourself, okay? Get out the soundtrack in your mind that you are not creative, or that you don't have good ideas, okay? We all have good ideas. We all have bad ideas. It's part of the process. What we need to do is share them, because in the midst of all of those thousands of ideas, there's gonna be those nuggets of gold that are going to unlock so much in you and in others. And I hope that you will tap into that. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to skotwaldron.com. You can find more interviews on there, find out a little bit more what I offer. YouTube, go there, check out my channel, like, subscribe, comment, find some educational information on there. I offer a lot of free teaching on there as well. And I would love to connect with you in any way, shape, or form on LinkedIn. So hook up with me there. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you on another episode of Unlocked.